welcome to my channel. Hello to everyone who is new here. My name is Rachel, and to everyone who is returning, hey, what's up? How's it going? Thank you so much for coming here and watching. I thought for today's video we would do all of my favorite books that I read growing up. Now, this is not a complete list. I'm going to keep two books that are not as well known, but just know that I was a huge fan of the Twilight series. I was trash for Hunger Games, loved me some Divergent. Don't think for a second that I wasn't a part of those fandoms too. I was, without a doubt. So I'm mainly doing this for nostalgia vibes. Also just kind of thinking through, I want to do some more recommendation videos, and these books obviously will be recommended just because they're the ones that really stuck out to me growing up and got me interested in reading. So if you are looking for nostalgic books without having to reread some of your favorites, which I'm a big rereader. I love to reread books. So go out there, reread some of your favorites. I am currently rereading some of my favorites, and some of them hit, some of them don't. But the nostalgia factor in them, it's so good. It warms my heart. I have about 12 books to go through, so let's go ahead and get started. Very first book, the book that got me into reading in the first place, well, really the series that got me into reading in the first place, Series of Unfortunate Events by Lemony Snicket. Not his actual name. I don't know the actual person's name. This series, when I first read it, I remember thinking just like, wow, my mind is blown. Children can actually take care of themselves, and they can solve the issues, and they can be smart, and they can take care of business. I love that, because really, that's what this series is about. I was a sucker for some good mystery vibes. That was my favorite genre. I am currently rereading it. I've only gotten to the third one, and oh my gosh, the violent language that is used in these. I mean, not a spoiler, but Count Olaf at one point even says to the kids that he's going to stab them and have their blood run down the stairs. Like, and yet little baby Rachel was just like, wow, give me more of that. Okay. Just very violent book, but also just love the fact that the children save themselves. I think that was the part that I loved the most, is that these kids were smart, whereas all of the adults were dumb, and I loved that as a kid. I needed that. I needed to feel right as a child. That's what I got from this series. If you haven't read this series, or if you haven't recommended this series to a child, maybe read it first and then recommend it, because it is very violent. But I don't remember that. I just remember the kids and their problem solving, and I loved that. Live, laugh, love that. The book that got me into reading. The next series that I'm going to talk about, I am so surprised isn't talked about more. It is a middle grade series, gives kind of Harry Potter vibes, but isn't Harry Potter, and it is the Charlie Bone series by Jenny Nemo, something like that. This series is a fantasy series, and you follow a boy named Charlie Bone, and he's kind of got that chosen one trope about him, and you follow him into a fantasy world. So he grows up not special, and then he's thrust into this school where he is special. So very Harry Potter vibes, but that's really where it ends. The magic system is different. The cast of characters is completely different. That's another series I really want to reread. I've looked for the Charlie Bone series, but I just haven't been able to find it anywhere. I just remember the mystery and what they're trying to uncover and why Charlie is special and all of this just being so interesting. I couldn't stop reading it. I remember going into my middle school library trying to find the Charlie Bone series, just trying to find the next one to get my hands on. I think there's 10 books in it, so it's a long one, But the books, they weren't that big. Like, they're not like Harry Potter big, but so good. Honestly, if you want to read a good middle grade fantasy book, try the Bone. Do it. Do it. Okay, the next series that I read is, I'm not going to say it's embarrassing because I don't believe that any of the books that got me into reading are truly embarrassing. But if any one of these books or series is going to be embarrassing, it's probably going to be this one. It is the Christy Miller series by Robin Jones Gunn. So this is the first collection. It's books 1 through 3, and there's a total of 5 collections. It's a coming of age story. It's about Christy Miller. Basically about this girl who goes and visits her aunt and uncle at their beach house. They're like rich, and she befriends this older group of people who live there. Not that much older. I mean, a few years older, but it is heavily religious. And so it is about Christy Miller coming of age, but also the growth of her relationship with God. Honestly, like, I remember vibing with this book. I don't remember exactly what all happened. I remember it being very angsty sometimes. I just remember connecting with Christy. You really just do deal with like regular struggles through it, like Christy's regular struggles. Like, it's very relatable in that sense. I remember advising a friend to read this series, and she could not stop laughing, could not stop making fun of it. I get it. I laugh too. I don't know, there was something about Christy Miller. I could not get enough of her story, and I needed to find out if her and Todd were going to end up together. Todd is the main love interest. We love Christy and Todd forever. My OG couple. Before Bella and Edward, there was Christy and Todd. So this next series that I'm going to talk about, I cannot believe I did not include in my fantasy recommendations video, because this quartet / this author, another amazing high fantasy author. My favorite, though, is Alana the Lioness series. I believe it's called The Song of the Lioness by Tamora Pierce. Tamora Pierce, oh my gosh, she wrote, I'm thinking of 3 or 4 other quartets and series, spin-off series that she wrote in the same world. So good. Again, before Selena Sardothian, we had Elena the Lioness. You follow Elena from when she's young all the way to when she's a grown woman, and you will fall in love. You will fall in love with her. So the first book, you start off with Elena. She is young and she wants to be a knight. However, she's a woman, so she can't. So what she does is she pretends to be her twin brother and goes to knight school. And there she learns how to be a knight. While she's there, she's going through puberty. She is developing feelings. There's a lot of different things going on. But all the while, she is breaking barriers, shattering the glass ceiling, just being amazing and just going after what she wants. It's such a good series, such good characters, such a good world. Tamora Pierce's writing is so simple. If you're not a big high fantasy reader, I would suggest reading some Tamora Pierce because her stories are so easy to understand. The world is so easy to understand, but also it's complex enough that it keeps you engaged. I can't believe I completely forgot about that series. Like, I thought about it and I was like, oh, I loved that series. I need to reread this series. I need to reread all of Tamora Pierce's writing because she's so good. So, highly recommend that one for adults too. If you are looking for fantasy, Tamora Pierce, girl, specifically, Song of the Lioness quartet. Next book, we're moving more into my high school books that I was really into, and I was very much into fantasy, dystopian, hint of romance. That's where my vibe was. So that is why I absolutely loved this next trilogy, Under the Never Sky by Veronica Rossi. I'm just so surprised that this one didn't pop off because the writing, I remember, was being so good. This is centered around a world in which it is completely destroyed by this thing called the ether. And this ether stuff is like this blue lightning, electric, shocking stuff. And in order to survive in this world, you have to be in one of these dome cities. Our main girl, she was in this dome city, but it starts off with her waking up outside in the ether, almost dead, and a outsider, a person who actually lives out in the ether, coming to her rescue. And it's a boy. So, of course, you know where the love interest is. So it's basically about her being adopted into this outsider tribe and her trying to figure out exactly what happened to her, why she was kicked out, also figuring out why some people are inside, why others are not, the corruption with that. It is so good. It is so good. I remember falling in love with this trilogy. I want to say I reread it almost right after I had gotten it. I mean, this true nostalgia vibes. Read this trilogy. I can't believe that it never popped off. The next series I'm going to talk about is the Maximum Ride series by James Patterson. I remember when I first read this series, and I remember thinking, well, that's kind of weird, because it's basically about these 6 children who have wings. So they're 98% human, 2% avian, and so they can fly. It's strange in the sense of like, why? Which, that is what the whole series is about. I think it's like 7 or 8 books. And the entire time, this group of 6 children are being hunted by the government or some scientific organization. All the while, these children are trying to figure out why they're being hunted, why they have wings, just why they are the way that they are. It's really a story about survival and found family. I just remember loving Max, that's our main character, and thinking that she was just so cool. I loved strong female characters, so you'll kind of get the sense from this list that those were all my favorites. It's just a really good, weird series. I remember the found family aspect, and also, again, kids going up against adults and somehow winning being my favorite thing in the world. So recommend that one. Next trilogy that I remember loving in high school was the Legend trilogy by Marie Lu. I think this was my first Marie Lu trilogy that I ever read. If you've never read Marie Lu, go pick her up. She does science fiction, dystopian writing. Really good. This one is specifically about June and Day. June's brother is murdered, and the prime suspect is Day. So June hates Day, but then come to find out, Day actually didn't murder her brother. It's really a story of both of them trying to figure out why their country is covering up what actually happened to June's brother. And along the way, they uncover so many big things. I do think Marie Lu wrote or is going to write another book about June and Day. This is like the new trend of authors going back and writing another book of a beloved series that they've already finished, which I kind of get. There were mixed feelings about the end of this trilogy. It was fairly open-ended. I remember not minding too much because I think you could assume how it ended, even if it wasn't actually told to you, but I get it, you know? Open-ended endings can be hard to swallow, so I get it. Loved this trilogy. It was so interesting. Political intrigue, a little bit of romance in there, a dystopian world that was just so fascinating. So, loved this book growing up. Ate it. I am losing more and more of my son. Next book is really more about the author herself that I loved. Started going through a pretty big YA romance phase. The queen of YA romance at the time was Sarah Dessen. So this one is specifically Along for the Ride. They actually just made a Netflix movie of this one. Super cute, very vibey. My favorite, I think, is Just Listen. I remember eating up her books. I loved her. I loved her so much. If you know anything about 2000s YA books, you'll know Sarah Dessen. I remember reading these and being like, wow, will I ever find someone like this? But also, none of the boys in my school would ever do anything close to what the boys in these books would do. May have been just setting myself up for disappointment. Still loved them. Still dreamed hard. Live, laugh, love. All right, next trilogy is a fantasy trilogy. I do have the first one, but it's somewhere hidden. I don't know where it is. So I only have the second one to show you. The trilogy is called Snow Like Ashes. This is the second one, Frost Like Night, by Sarah Rash, something like that. Another killer author, as well as really good books. I remember when I read this, there's like a really, really good love triangle in here. You're always kind of rooting for this one person. It's set in a fantasy world. You've got this girl. She is, I believe, a very high up in society woman in the ice/winter kingdom. You've got all the different seasons as different kingdoms. Yeah, so it's basically about her. She's also really, really cool. She knows how to fight. She knows how to take care of herself. We live, laugh, love that. She's also BFFs with the prince of the winter kingdom. You can probably guess where the love triangle comes in. I just remember this world being so interesting. The relationships were so good in this. I ate up that love triangle. Mira is another very strong female character. Another one that I was surprised didn't pop off. Again, looking for nostalgia vibes. I recommend this one. I should check out more of Sarah's books because I remember this one being so good. Really, I just need to reread this trilogy again just to refresh myself. But I saw this and I was like, oh, I loved that trilogy. And when you have that feeling, it means something. Pick this one up if you want a really good YA fantasy. This is also going to be a kind of weird one that I was obsessed with during high school. And it really has to do with the author more than it does this actual book. Granted, this book is my favorite of his. But it's funny just looking back now on the fact that I was so obsessed. It's Nicholas Sparks. This one specifically, True Believer. I remember reading all of his work. And I just remember, too, like, not feeling weird about it. I had no bad feelings about the fact that I was reading about middle-aged people finally finding the love of their life. Like, I don't remember feeling any kind of way except for, wow, I love these books, which they're good books, you know? But now just thinking about it, so funny, so weird. So personally, this one is my favorite. It is about a small town girl and a big town guy. He visits the small town. She has a past, he has a past, and they bond and heal each other. Too bad this one never became a movie. I was waiting for the day. I mean, we've made movies about all his other books. Why not this one? It's really funny. It's just really funny to me that I, as a 15, 16-year-old was just like, yes, I want to hear about the midlife crisis of people twice my age. That is what I want. Still love them. I want to reread this one. I recently just picked this one up from Half Price Books, and I was like, again, that was one of my favorite books. Gotta get it. Okay, next book is another one I can't believe more people never talked about. The author is fairly popular now, but it is The Disreputable History of Frankie Lotta Banks by E. Lockhart. This book is so good. It's so witty. It's so interesting. It's kind of like a dark academia vibes about this girl named Frankie who is trying to get into this secret society at this posh boarding school. This is the only one I'm going to read the inside cover because I just think the inside cover does Frankie Lotta Banks at age 14, debate club. Her father's bunny rabbit. A mildly geeky girl attending a highly competitive boarding school. Frankie Lotta Banks at age 15, a knockout figure, a sharp tongue, a chip on her shoulder, and a gorgeous new senior boyfriend, the supremely funny, goofy, word-obsessed Matthew Livingston. Frankie Lotta Banks, no longer the kind of girl to take no for an answer, especially when no means she's excluded from her boyfriend's all-male secret society, not when her ex-boyfriend shows up in the strangest of places, not when she knows she's smarter than any of them, when she knows Matthew is lying to her, and when there are so many pranks to be done. Frankie Lotta Banks at age 16, possibly a criminal mastermind. This is the story of how she got that way. Need I say more? One of my favorite quotes that made me actually LOL. She said something about her body looking like a baked potato. I remember being like, I relate so hard. I read this in college, so I recommend it now. It's so good. It's so funny. And there's so many pranks. It's very smart, and she knows how to get what she wants, and she knows how to get it done. And I love that. Highly recommend this one to read. I need to reread it. I remember reading it and loving it. That's why I have kept it all these years. This hit so hard. And the last book that I was so obsessed with, A Discovery of Witches trilogy by Deborah Harkness. This actually became a television series. This one is like Twilight, but for grown-ups. It's so good. We have this woman named Diana Bishop, and she is a professor slash person who is studying in like Oxford or Cambridge or something, and she is also a witch. However, she has put that in her past. She doesn't want to be a witch. However, she gets her hands on this prized book that she doesn't actually mean to get a hold of, and then all of these different creatures start coming to her trying to like get her. Other witches, vampires, werewolves, demons, monsters. So she's trying to like fight them all off, and while she's doing that, she has unlikely ally in a vampire named Matthew. It's all about her trying to figure out why this book is so special, why it was given to her, why it was then taken away from her. But then you also have this beautiful relationship between Diana and Matthew. It's such a good trilogy. If you are looking for magical realism, fantasy, get it. Dark academia, get it. So good. Loved it. I remember having so many feelings about it. I remember venting with a friend about it because she had told me to read this trilogy, and I remember just thanking her profusely, being like, wow, you've just given me my new favorite trilogy. Boom. All right, that is it for today's video. I hope you felt all the nostalgic vibes, or if you're going to go pick some of these up to potentially read, let me know, because would love to chat with you about them. I remember when you first find a book that you've like fall in love with is just such a powerful emotion and such a powerful feeling. I mean, it's why a lot of us read. And so going back through this list and just thinking about the feeling that I had when I first read it, it was fun for me. I hope you also enjoyed. Comment some of your favorite books that you read growing up. Go ahead and like or comment or subscribe if you want to. And I will talk to you guys again soon. Bye!